Rain lashed the city, a relentless drumbeat against the glass of Alexander Reed's penthouse. He was the king of this concrete jungle, a self-made CEO with a heart as cold as the steel of his skyscrapers. But tonight, the storm outside mirrored the one brewing within him, a tempest of regret for the choices that had cost him everything that truly mattered. He was about to leave for another empty late-night dinner when a faint knock echoed through the silence. No one ever came here uninvited. Frowning, he walked to the door. The knock came again, softer this time, trembling. He opened it, and his world tilted on its axis. A little girl, no older than 7, stood drenched and shivering on his doorstep. Her clothes were soaked, her small hands clutching a folded piece of paper. Her eyes, wide with a terror that pierced right through his armor, stared up at him. "Plea, sir," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "They hurt my mom. She's dying." Alexander's breath hitched. The words were a jumble, a nightmare he couldn't comprehend, but the raw fear in her eyes shattered his composure. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice softer than he'd intended. "My name is Lily," she said, her small body trembling. "You're Mr. Reed, right?" Mom said. "You could help." He crouched, trying to make sense of the chaos. "Your mom? What happened to her?" Lily hesitated, then handed him the crumpled, damp paper. He unfolded it. The words stained with water and blood made his heart stop. "If you're reading this, Alex, it means I failed to protect Lily. Please help her. Don't let her suffer for my mistakes." Emily. Emily. The name was a ghost, a phantom from a life he'd abandoned. Emily Carter. The woman he'd loved before ambition became his only god, the only person who had ever seen the man behind the ruthless machine. After all these years, her daughter was at his door. "Emily, is your mother's name Emily?" he asked, his voice thick with disbelief. Lily nodded weakly. "She told me to find you if something bad ever happened. She said you were. Kind once. Kind once." The words were a knife to his soul. Without another thought, Alexander grabbed his coat, scooped the trembling child into his arms, and bolted for his car. The rain pounded against the windshield as he sped through the night, his mind a whirlwind of guilt, fear, and a desperate flickering hope. They arrived at a rundown apartment complex on the city's fringe. Lily pointed to a dimly lit window. There, sprinted up the stairs, his expensive shoes splashing through puddles, and threw open the door. The air was thick with damp and despair. There, on the floor, was Emily, pale, bleeding, and barely conscious. "Emily," he shouted, dropping to his knees beside her. Her eyes fluttered open. For a fleeting moment, recognition flickered. "Alex," she breathed. "You came." Panic seized him. He pressed his hand against her wound, fumbling for his phone. "Don't talk. I'm calling an ambulance." She shook her head, a faint, desperate motion. "No time. They'll come back." "They," he demanded, his voice cracking. She coughed, her strength fading. "The people I worked for. I tried to expose them. They found out. Please, protect Lily. She's all I have." Tears blurred his vision as the wail of distant sirens grew louder. He gripped her hand, his own promise a desperate whisper. "I won't let anything happen to her. Swear it, Emily." A faint smile touched her lips, a final, heartbreaking goodbye. Then her hand went limp. In that moment, Alexander's world shattered. As paramedics confirmed what his heart already screamed, he stood frozen, his suit soaked in blood and rain. A little girl's sobs muffled against his chest. The mighty CEO, the master of his universe, felt utterly and completely powerless. The following weeks were a suffocating blur of police statements, private investigators, and nights haunted by Emily's last words. The truth was ugly. She had been a whistleblower inside a charity that was a front for one of Alexander's biggest competitors, laundering money and destroying lives. She had risked everything to bring them down, and they had silenced her.
Lily.
Lily stayed with him in his vast, empty mansion. She was a silent shadow, clinging to a stuffed bunny, her eyes hollowed by grief. For the first time, Alexander's fortress felt like a prison. He poured his wealth and influence into the investigation, driven by a thirst for justice. But beneath it was a deeper, more desperate need: redemption. One evening, he found Lily in a room he hadn't entered in years, staring out at the starless, rain-slicked sky. "You miss her," he said, his voice gentle. She nodded, her small voice a whisper. "Mom used to say the stars are people we love, watching over us. But I can't see her star yet." A lump formed in his throat. Maybe her star is still fighting to shine. That night, something inside Alexander shifted. The ice that had encased his heart for a decade began to crack. He started spending real time with Lily. He read her stories, clumsily tried to teach her to draw, and took her to the park, pushing her on the swings until her quiet sadness was replaced by peals of laughter. Slowly, the frightened child from his doorstep began to heal, and as he watched her smile, Alexander felt something he thought was lost to him forever: hope. Months later, the case concluded. Thanks to the evidence his team had relentlessly pursued, the men responsible for Emily's murder were brought to justice. It was a victory, but a hollow one. It couldn't bring her back. Leaving the courthouse, Lily's small hand tucked in his, she looked up at him with those bright, intelligent eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Reed. Mom would be happy." A faint smile touched his lips. "Call me Alex," he said. She tilted her head, a thoughtful expression on her face. "Can I call you Dad instead?" The world stopped. Tears welled in his eyes. It was a title he hadn't earned, a role he never thought he'd have. But in that one heart-stopping moment, it was the only thing in the world he wanted. He knelt, pulling her into a fierce hug. "You already do?" he whispered into her hair. Years passed. Alexander Reed was no longer the ruthless CEO. He'd sold off a large part of his empire and established the Emily Carter Foundation, a sanctuary for women and children escaping the very darkness that had taken Lily's mother. Now, every evening, he and Lily, a bright, confident teenager, would stand on their rooftop, looking up at the vast expanse of the night sky. One night, she pointed to a single, brilliant star. "There she is," Lily whispered, a peaceful smile on her face. "Mom's star." Alexander looked up, a profound warmth spreading through his chest. "Yeah," he said softly, "and she's proud of us." The rain that had once symbolized so much pain now felt like a cleansing, a reminder that even after the most devastating storms, life finds a way. Because sometimes, love doesn't die. It just returns in the most unexpected way through the eyes of a child. The weight of a promise and the incredible healing power of redemption.